There it is, a homemade Highbanker. I think it's gonna work pretty good. I had some scrap aluminum lying around and I don't have a metal brake, but I was able to bend it up into this Highbanker. And in this video, I'm gonna show you how. What I've got set up here is I've got the saw set to just barely score, as you can see, this line right here. I don't know exactly how this is going to bend. So this is the test piece. So I'm going to bend this up straight up 90 degrees on each side, and we'll see how much space there is on the inside. I'm looking for exactly 12 inches. And then based on what I actually get, when I go ahead and cut the full size piece into my sluice box, I will adjust my measurements accordingly. Try that. Appears to be working. Okay, set it on the workbench perhaps. Now the material I'm working with is 50-52 aluminum, which actually does allow you to bend it like this. A 6000 series like 60, 61 or 60, 63 apparently does not do this. It will just snap and be brittle. Once it's all welded together and braced and everything, we'll be good to go. Just about there. The old speed square works for pretty much everything. So as you can see, we're just about perfect there. There we go. And this side we've got a little ways to go, so simply push a little further. There, we've gone too far. Don't want to go back and forth too many times. Bang on, square. That is what the sluice box would look like. I measured a line over here, exactly 12 inches apart, and then to run the table of my saw, I basically went from this edge to the blade is 5 inches. It's off by about a 32nd of an inch, so it's actually like a 32nd shy of 5 inches. And then when I bend this, it should theoretically be 12 inches, and in fact, and then bring it on over. That's what I wind up with right there. So big eighth shy of 12 inches. This is the dream mat of choice. These don't all come in exactly 12 inches wide, apparently. This one, for example, if you see how there's that little lip at the bottom, that bottom lip is supposed to be 12 inches wide. But the top is actually a little narrow. So yeah, the bottom's exactly 12. I'm basically going to take those measurements and take this pen, pencil, whatever. Talking's hard. I've got this sheet right here laid out. Just have it set on my little redneck workbench here. And the way I'm going to do it is basically you measure in exactly the length you need, measure again exactly the length you need. I'm going to copy exactly the space I did there on my lines. And then rather than figuring out where it's going to bend, how it's all going to work out, it's already set up and I know exactly what I'm going to get. The other thing is the depth of the cut. It's impossible just looking at it because there's flex in the table. To get this saw to cut that exact little slice I wanted, if you go too little, then it doesn't really bend and you end up bending the whole sheet. If you go too much, then it'll be a little weak. So I want to have that happy medium. So you can kind of see how far I cut in there. Oh, that actually shows up real nice in the camera. But that depth works perfectly. This blade right here is not a metal cutting blade. It's actually just a 60 tooth ultra fine finish carpentry blade. And that's what I'm using to cut the aluminum. It's noisy, wear your hearing protection, eye protection, usual stuff, but it seems to do a pretty decent job. It's obviously an old blade, so I'm not worried about keeping it super sharp for wood because it does dull these pretty good, but they just keep going and going and going, and you can cut the aluminum with a regular metal blade, no cutting fluid. Pretty easy to work with. Best part about aluminum, and the whole reason I'm doing this, other than the fact that I had a leftover sheet lying around, If I made it out of wood, you have to paint it. And a wooden Highbanker, I've done it before. It's lasted years. They're really good if you use the right techniques to paint your wood, but painting takes time. Aluminum, just tack it together, and if you have the welder, it's the way to go. We're ready to cut. I'm gonna double check my measurements. So I'm exactly 5 inches from this line to there. I measured my table, and that's the distance that I need to be. One thing about aluminum cutting, it's noisy. The other tip is if you don't have a composite table, it sticks to the aluminum. Anytime there's a little piece of debris in there, it just hits the brakes. So I'm gonna try putting some painter's tape on my table, see if that helps. Here goes nothing. That painter's tape really helps. So just snug it up. Now, before I bend this thing up, and once I bend this up, it's gonna be a lot harder to cut on this line. If these were good tires, I feel like this would affect their performance slightly. Anyways, garbage tires. Wasn't I just saying it's not a matter of if you make mistakes, it's a matter of when. You can't just bend it all at once. You gotta start here and it'll bend a little, then you go to the middle and it bends a little, and you go to the far end and it bends a little. And if you go gradually enough and you don't warp the sides and they all just move in one good go, but they will always bend right on the line that you cut with your saw. It certainly doesn't want to bend. Could have gone a little bit deeper with that cut. Seeing this thing jiggling around like crazy. But you get the point. It's going eventually. Whew. I wonder if I've had enough of wrestling. I don't want to set up the saw again. Basically, I'm being lazy. I'm gonna see if I can freehand a little bit more of a cut into this. Let's try that out. We're moving better. I guess the lesson is all of this can be done with basically a grinder. So what we have is roughly a sluice box. Now I go along with quick square, put it in, so that's going to get pulled in. It's going to get pulled in. That's perfect. Needs to come in just about an 1/8. Come in about an 1/8. These long pieces, you do have to cut a little bit deeper. I forgot about doing that, but live and learn. Just about perfect right there. So I've been using a $200 Lincoln Electric welding mask for years, and it finally broke. Just kept giving me welding flash randomly. This Tack Life helmet from Amazon, I think shipped to my door in Canadian dollars, it was 85 bucks. And I have never welded with a better view. This is an awesome mask. And here, first time welding aluminum in a little while. very, very hot. So the next step is going to be putting a support that goes from here down to here. I want that to be adjustable. I've widened out the hopper here. Just did the same thing where I cut a line, folded it out, welded in the gap here. That just allows your shovels to have a little wider place to hit so that you don't have anything falling off and down into your sluice matting below. I'll show you how the spray bar is going to work here in a minute. And one thing that I think is pretty cool is the way I've hooked up this mat. Top of the mat has a little ridge, and I just threw a couple rivets onto a piece of aluminum, and you just pull that up, slide your mat out, it holds it right in. Hey buddy. Always got to pause work for the neighborhood cat to come visit. Buddy, you like the Seadoo trailer? All right, little buddy. I gotta go build a Highbanker. That sits nice and flush. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep this hopper nice and open, just so that I can slide in whatever I like. I might want some miner's moss to go in here that I can easily just slide out, and I don't want things catching on a bolt head. Weld this to the far side, just like so. There you go. I'd say that worked out pretty nice. And on the inside, nice and flush. We are just about ready to run some water through the machine and see how it all works. But first, courtesy of my good friend Alex, with Everyday Greens, we've got some locally grown microgreens on a free-range chicken salad, some delicious mayo, just a touch of pesto on top, and a side of Miss Vicky's salt and vinegar. That is going to be the perfect afternoon snack. The Cadillac of mining pumps. Your little throttle there. Set this where you like it. Got some spare parts there and there. I can use those either to replace these bolts, or if I lose one of my leg screws. Better than having a tool bag is to have it connected to the Highbanker itself. Quite like this feature. See if I can, whoops, show it to you. This is just spring operated. So to clean your mat, you just slide the mat right out, and out comes the mat. If you want to put it back in, you just bump her on in there, and just pull this up with one hand and slide it in, and it locks into place. Gave it a little bit of a kick out at the edges. I find if you don't do that, when you shovel full shovels in and you miss, it goes over the edge, you get some unclassified material into your mat. So by doing this, you make sure that only classified material is going to hit your box. There it is. I have never used that dream mat for gold mining before. I've done the rough top conveyor belt, very similar to a gold cube. Mine was just 2 feet wide and 5 feet long. So we'll do a bit of a review on how well it actually recovers the flour gold here in Alberta.